Hey guys, it's Tyken here. I'm back with another video for you, so let's dive right in. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment. Let me know which manhwa you want to see next. Let's go!
It all began with what seemed like a dream. A woman watched him in bed with an expression that mixed shyness and a clear, ulterior motive. Suddenly, another woman appeared, revealing that she knew he was only pretending to be asleep. The young man, caught off guard, decided to play along. He found himself surrounded by the two of them, living what seemed like any man's fantasy. Jokingly, he said that he was already awake and asked them to stop because he was being tickled. He gave himself completely to the moment. Even if it was just a dream, it was so realistic and perfect that he never wanted it to end. The sensation was so vivid that for a moment, he kept his eyes closed, just enjoying the touch on his face. But then, a shiver ran down his spine. Something was very, very wrong. What was touching him wasn't human. Reality revealed itself in the most disgusting and terrifying way possible. The dream turned into a nightmare. Paradise turned into hell in the blink of an eye. Above him, a two-headed hyena, hungry and drooling, was about to make its final pounce. With no time to think, the creature lunged with its fangs bared, ready to devour him right there. But this young man, Chu Guang, was a survivor. He had fallen asleep exhausted in the desert, and he wasn't going to let a nap cost him his life. With a quick movement, he dodged and counterattacked with a well-aimed punch to the creature's chin. The goal wasn't to win, it was to survive. Chu Guang used the impact to create distance and run away as fast as he could. Speed was his only ally at that moment, leaving the furious creature behind. Exhausted, he stopped to catch his breath. The creature seemed to have been left behind, but the danger wasn't over yet. Night was coming, and he needed to get back to base. Breathless, Chu Guang raced against time. Night was falling quickly, and staying outside, in that world, meant the end. Each step weighed him down, reminding him of how close he was to not making it back. But exhaustion couldn't beat him now. He knew that traveling through that post-apocalyptic world, infested with monsters, was too dangerous at night. It was time to return to base. With no time to lose, he quickened his pace towards his only safe haven. Behind that high-tech door was his sanctuary in the midst of chaos, the only place where he could let his guard down. The entrance opened, releasing the pressurized air from inside. He was home, and inside, the reality was different. A high-tech laboratory, an absolute contrast to the devastated lands outside. And there he was, the shelter's robot assistant, Little Seven. He welcomed his master, happy to see him back. But the warm welcome soon turned into a scolding. Little Seven reminded him that he had been gone for too long and still had a task pending. Ignoring the robot's insistence, Chu Guang went straight to his workstation. He was the administrator of that place, and he had responsibilities. First, he needed to recharge his batteries. Surviving out there consumed everything he had. With food in his stomach, it was time to start the real work. The tired expression disappeared. In front of the screen, he was no longer a fugitive, but the master of that domain. His mission was clear: to use the shelter system to bring people from another world, the players, to help him reconquer the devastated lands. The plan was about to begin. With the plan laid out, Chu Guang put his hands on the keyboard. His mission was to deceive people from his old world, Earth, and bring them to the apocalypse as if they were players in a new game. The bait was cast with a simple but powerful question, the promise of a game so realistic that it blurred the line with reality itself. An irresistible invitation for any adventurer. And on Earth, in any given dormitory, a young man was one of the first to bite the hook. He had no idea that the link he received was a portal to a real world. With the first players signing up, the system rewarded Chu Guang. The recruitment mission had been a success, and he finally had the resources to take the next step. For the new players, however, the experience was an immediate shock. What was supposed to be the start of a game seemed much more real than expected. Back at Shelter 404 in the devastated lands, Chu Guang's plan was in full swing. He watched the monitors, aware that he was deceiving people into coming to that world. Each new recruit was another chance for survival for him. The game, Wasteland Online, already had its first 11 candidates. But among the 11 candidates, one in particular didn't seem intimidated at all. For him, the real fun was just beginning, and this was the candidate in question. While the others felt the pressure, he prepared himself with the calmness of someone who already considered himself the winner. For him, this was just a formality. The competition wasn't a test, but the celebration party itself. Victory was already a fact, and only the official announcement was missing for everyone to know. Suddenly, the truth hit him. The competition was nothing more than a farce, a simple staging. The shock of the revelation was so devastating that his body began to give way right there in the middle of the party. At that moment, he understood everything. The competition, the promises, the hope. It was all a big lie. The weight of that truth was simply wildly unbearable. Oh, lie crushing. That single thought completely paralyzed him. Every fiber of his body reacted to the harsh reality he had just discovered, a truth that physically hurt. An icy chill ran through his body. The penny dropped in the worst possible way, and panic began to set in. The story of how Chu Guang arrived in that world was, to say the least, chaotic. He found himself alone, thrown into the middle of a ruined civilization without the slightest idea of where he was or how to return. Disoriented and panicked, he just ran. He ran aimlessly, trying to escape a reality that seemed more like a nightmare. The young man moved forward, driven only by the purest survival instinct. He didn't stop for a single second, until suddenly, a strange sensation completely paralyzed him in place. Then, that same high-pitched sound he heard before being transported echoed in his mind, an almost unbearable pain that made him double over. And that's when the most absurd thing happened. A system screen appeared out of nowhere, welcoming Chu Guang, the new scavenger of that post-apocalyptic world. His first reaction was to look for his cell phone, maybe to call the police, but the despair only increased. He had lost everything. His pockets were completely empty. After wandering aimlessly for a whole day, hunger began to kick in. To survive, he needed to accept reality and find something to eat. And it was in this search that, unexpectedly, he found a survivor's camp, a place with living people. Hidden, Chu Guang watched the other inhabitants. They were proof that he was not completely alone in that destroyed world. With renewed hope, he decided to approach to try to get food and, who knows, some answers. But the moment he took a step, he felt something cold on his shoulder. A voice threatened him, telling him not to move. The reception in that place would be anything but friendly. The threat came from an older man, who introduced himself as Old Walter. He warned Chu Guang that that place was not a playground for children, making clear the danger the young man was in. Without losing his cool, Chu Guang tried to appease the situation with a forced smile, thanking him for the warning. He needed to show that he was not a threat to the survivors of that camp. But, suddenly, something interrupted the tense conversation. An unexpected danger arose out of nowhere, forcing everyone to go on high alert. A mutant creature was shot down by another survivor before it could attack. The sudden death of the monster showed Chu Guang that the dangers there were constant and came from all sides. With the situation resolved, Walter relaxed and explained that, without equipment, the young man would become monster food. The warning now sounded more like advice than a threat. The old hunter went to inspect the creature's carcass, a common ritual for the survivors of that world. Chu Guang just watched, slowly understanding the rules of that place. At that moment, Chu Guang realized that Walter's words, said moments before, were the purest truth. That world didn't forgive carelessness. The history of that place was tragic. 211 years ago, a great war had practically wiped human civilization off the map, starting the post-apocalyptic era. The consequences of the war were the emergence of countless mutant animals, turning survival into a daily battle against grotesque predators. And as if the creatures weren't enough, humans themselves became a threat. Raiders and hostile groups roamed the devastated lands, making trust a rare luxury. Chu Guang reflected on his own journey. He already understood the basics of that world, but a mystery haunted him. A high-pitched noise that only he heard near the place where he first appeared. Determined to find the source of that sound, he set off towards the point of origin, running through the ruins of the ancient civilization. The landscape was desolate. Destroyed buildings and empty streets were all that remained of a prosperous past, a constant reminder of what humanity had lost. His search led him to an abandoned asylum. The ruined building seemed to be the epicenter of the mysterious call that attracted him. The noise in his mind became stronger than ever. There was no more doubt. The answer he was looking for was in that place. It was time to find out what was calling him. Chu Guang finally found the origin of the sound. The call that haunted him came from within those ruins, from a specific point in the depths of the destroyed structure. Without hesitating, he followed the path, confident that he was heading in the right direction. Each step took him deeper into the mystery, bringing him closer to the answer he sought. But then, he stopped suddenly. What appeared before him was nothing like what he expected to find in that abandoned place. Amidst the rubble of an ancient world, there was a high-tech door, a secret shelter hidden right under everyone's noses. The sound in his mind seemed to come directly from the center of that door, as if inviting him to activate it. A strange sensation ran through Chu Guang. It was as if that technology was somehow connected to him. Following an impulse, he reached out and touched the panel. To his surprise, the system responded to his fingerprint, recognizing him. The immense metal door began to open. Curiosity mixed with a tinge of fear about what he might have just unleashed. He took his first step into the shelter, not knowing if he had found the answer to his questions or his end. And in the darkness, a giant silhouette materialized. The creature's heavy breathing echoed through the corridor, and for a moment, Chu Guang thought it was too late. Only the imposing shadow quickly shrank, revealing a small rabbit-shaped robot which jumped towards him. The small machine introduced itself as his assistant, serial number 707, and congratulated Chu Guang for finally arriving. A holographic screen appeared, informing him that he had been promoted from scavenger to administrator. Chu Guang didn't understand anything. Was he the boss of this place? The robot, who introduced himself as Little Seven, confirmed. As administrator, he would have tasks to fulfill, and the little assistant was there to help him. Little Seven then revealed the true purpose of the shelter. It could not only connect with Earth from a parallel world, but also functioned as a game for other players. Chu Guang accepted the idea with complete confidence. As administrator, he could now choose which players from Earth would have the right to enter his game. The system was simple. A gaming headset would be sent to the homes of the chosen players. While analyzing the possible candidates, Chu Guang thought that using only serial numbers to identify people was very cold and impersonal. The same thing happened with the female players. He felt he needed a more human touch to manage all of this. As soon as the players put on the headset, they would instantly connect to one of the many clone bodies available in the shelter. Their consciousness would be transported to this new post-apocalyptic world, plunging into a totally immersive experience. only the feeling of being born in a clone body was not pleasant at all. The process was a complete shock to the system. The player's first experience was one of pure confusion and discomfort as their new bodies were activated. Watching the process, Chu Guang smiled. He had finally found his cheat, his great advantage to survive in that world. He clenched his fist, determined. With the ability to summon players, he could become stronger and even go home. But first, he turned to his assistant. He said that calling him by the serial number was very rude and that, from that moment on, his name would be Little Seven. The little robot was euphoric with the new name, repeating several times that he was now Little Seven and that he would take good care of his administrator. The reaction was so exaggerated that Chu Guang was embarrassed, wondering if there was some kind of error in his assistant's system. He sighed, realizing that Little Seven acted like an excited child. Despite being a little silly, the plan was still perfect. Meanwhile, on Earth, Chu Guang used the system to create a game ad. He just needed to convince people to sign up. As Chu Guang launched his ad on the other side of the world, a student named Ye Wei was surfing the internet. His username already gave away his priorities in life. In a discussion group, a user named Light posted about a new virtual reality game, guaranteeing that it was 100% realistic and impossible to distinguish from the real world. Ye Wei found the advertisement completely absurd. A game that realistic? Impossible. He prepared to type a response, mocking the idea. He began to type furiously, arguing that such a ridiculous advertisement would not attract a single player. But as he wrote, the user Light stepped forward and sent another message. He launched a challenge, asking if anyone would have the courage to test the game, and then posted the link to Wasteland online. Ye Wei's mind froze for a moment. He stopped typing, processing the possibility. What if a game like that really existed? The idea began to bubble in his head. If it were true, that meant the hundreds of mods he created could become real. All of his virtual wives would come to life. Doubt turned into determination. He convinced himself that as a science student, it was his duty to investigate this phenomenon with scientific rigor. And with the spirit of research in mind, he didn't hesitate to click to register. The next day, at the university, life went on as normal. A colleague even called him, but Ye Wei seemed to have his head somewhere else. At lunchtime, he devoured his food, still dwelling on the thoughts about the mysterious game from the night before. With a full stomach, he decided to return to the dormitory, whistling quietly, with no idea what awaited him. Upon arriving at his room door, he found a huge package. He was confused as he didn't remember buying anything at all. With the mysterious package inside the room, Ye Wei wasted no time and opened it. His curiosity was greater than his distrust. Upon seeing what was inside, he was a little disappointed. It was just a video game headset. At least, that's what it looked like at first glance. However, upon inspecting the object more closely, he realized that there was something different about that equipment. The design was futuristic and sleek, much more advanced than anything he had ever seen on the market. As soon as Ye Wei picked up the helmet, an intense light shone, almost blinding him. This was definitely not an ordinary headset. Driven by curiosity, he decided to try it on. After all, it was the only way to find out what this game was about. The instant he put on the helmet, the world around him disappeared. His eyes widened at the total immersion he felt. A tunnel of light and data formed in front of him, pulling his consciousness into the game system. Suddenly, he found himself in the scenario he had always dreamed of, a world where he was the protagonist, surrounded by incredible girls. He believed he would become the harem king, but this fantasy was short-lived. The perfect image shattered into pieces, and the reality of the game began to reveal itself. The fun and games are over. The true system interface appeared, and the atmosphere changed completely. A countdown appeared in his vision. The official launch of the game would happen in exactly 72 hours. The information overload was too much for him. Ye panicked, trying to understand what was happening. He realized that the helmet wasn't just an accessory. It was a neural interface that connected directly to his brain. Scared, he ran to the computer in search of answers. He needed to talk to his friends to see if anyone else had received that bizarre device. While he was trying to contact his friends, the system started a binding process. Ye thought the best way out was to look for the people he used to play with. But he soon remembered that, since his grandfather's death, he had lost contact with everyone. He had been alone for 5 months, and probably everyone on Earth already considered him dead. The conclusion was bitter but clear. Everything depended only on his own efforts. There was no more time for regrets. It was time to work. Next to him, the robotic assistant Little Seven was helping him set up the game's website. The strategy was not only to inform, but also to create enthusiasm, even using female bot accounts to interact with real players. With the plan laid out, Ye was ready to launch Wasteland Online and attract his first players to this new world. The idea was simple, but effective. Create attractive profiles that could convince anyone to enter the game and participate in the adventure. And the tactic worked perfectly. On the other side of the screen, a player was already completely hooked, promising the world to the girl he was talking to. Ye gave the final order to Little Seven. He needed to prepare for the launch, while the robot should focus on improving the site over the next 3 days. But the little robot was confused. He questioned the administrator about why he had only sent 4 headsets when 11 players had registered. After all, even if all 11 players were accepted, they would only occupy 10% of the cloning tanks available at the base. Ye explained that supplies were scarce. Fewer people meant fewer mouths to feed. Also, he couldn't force uninterested players to take the game seriously. Haste makes waste. His strategy was to focus on nurturing those 4 selected players first, treating each one as a valuable piece on his board. And the decision proved correct. Just recruiting those 4 was enough to complete the system's task, releasing an immediate reward. The reward was a nano-carbon bulletproof vest, an item that seemed to be of very high technology, and Ye didn't hesitate to redeem it. In the next instant, the item materialized and automatically equipped itself on his body. Ye was impressed with the technology, little knowing that this was just the first of many surprises that the system had in store. Soon after receiving the vest, the system presented Chu Guang with a new way to spend his points: mystery boxes. There were 3 options, with prices ranging from basic to more expensive, promising increasingly better rewards. Chu Guang was in a dilemma. He could spend his few points on several basic boxes, hoping for something useful, or save everything to guarantee a powerful item, like a weapon. The decision was not easy. The choice weighed on his mind: several chances at random items or the security of a powerful weapon. In a world like that, a wrong decision could cost everything. Before he could decide, Little Seven interrupted him with a notification. A new main task had been released, and the promised reward would completely change his plans. The mission reward was gigantic, 100 points at once. In addition, the prize included something called active matter, which functioned as a kind of resurrection currency for players. With the promise of the mission's 100 points, the decision became easy. He would use the future reward for the weapon. For now, he ordered Little Seven to spend all of his current points on the basic boxes. The system obeyed instantly. A platform rose from the ground, releasing a cold mist as the process of opening the boxes began. A structure revealed itself in the middle of the smoke. Chu Guang and Little Seven watched, waiting to see what items luck would bring them. But the excitement was short-lived. He was hoping for equipment, maybe even a simple weapon. What came out of the machine, however, was disappointing. The result of his 5 points were lollipops and a compressed cookie. He couldn't believe the system was treating him like a child. He complained about the pettiness of the rewards, and to make matters worse, he had spent 5 points, but only received 4 items. One was missing. It was then that he noticed something strange about the packaging of one of the sweets. Could that be the missing 5th item? It wasn't a common wrapper. Upon unfolding it, Chu Guang found a hidden message written in the language of that world. Luckily, he had spent the last 5 months learning to read and write the local language. The message would not be a mystery to him. The message was from the shelter's first administrator. In it, he mocked the administrator's message, boasted of his genius for disguising the entire device as a simple game. For Chu Guang, that explained a lot about the nature of that world. Intrigued by the discovery, he turned to Little Seven and asked if the robot knew the first administrator. He needed answers about the creator of that system. The little robot explained that it didn't know the creator, as it was only activated with Chu Guang's arrival. The young man then suggested that they search for information in the shelter's database. Little Seven started the search, but the data that emerged told a different story. Not about the administrator, but about the planet's dark past. A terrible war that lasted for years and destroyed almost everything. The war ended in 2129 with the mutual annihilation of the conflicting factions. It was the beginning of what became known as the Desert Era, the end of civilization as it was known. A long post-war nuclear winter almost extinguished the last vestiges of humanity. And, in the midst of all this, Little Seven concluded that any information about the first administrator had been erased. With the trail going cold, Chu Guang decided to put the mystery aside for now. There was a more urgent problem. The new players would arrive in just 3 days, and the shelter had no supplies. He began to prepare to leave, keeping the only clue he had about the past of that place. Chu Guang said goodbye to Little Seven, asking the robot to wait for him. He needed to solve the lack of food and water before the others arrived. His plan was to return to the survivor camp to collect supplies, a dangerous trip that could take up to 3 days to complete. The path, however, was infested with dangers, and it wasn't long before he encountered the hungry, two-headed hyenas that roamed the area. The mutant creatures were the personification of the nightmare of that post-apocalyptic world. Too late. He had been discovered. Panic took over for an instant, but the initial fear gave way to cold analysis. He remembered a crucial piece of information about those creatures. Despite their grotesque appearance, their combat power was actually less than that of normal hyenas. The real monsters of that desert were others. With that thought, Chu Guang calmed down. He knew he didn't need to engage in direct combat with the hyenas as long as he wasn't discovered. The key was stealth. He remembered a desert survival rule. Just like the mutant cockroaches, when you spot a scout, you can be sure there are countless others hiding in the darkness. He tightened the grip on the staff in his hand, ready for what came next. And that's when he saw the real danger. It wasn't just the hyenas, but a survivor running for her life with the entire pack on her heels. Creatures like these, mutants to the point of being unrecognizable, were the true monsters of that world, born only to kill. Although the two-headed hyenas weren't the strongest, they were extremely intelligent, using scouts to lure their prey into a deadly trap. One wrong move in that world, and the result was almost always a terrible end. In most cases, it meant losing your life in the most horrible way possible. His next stop was the recycling center. He needed to exchange his items for chips, the local currency, to buy supplies before the new players arrived. The recycling center was the only place on Bet Street to sell mutant parts and hides, but its reputation wasn't the best. The scale, for example, never showed the right weight. Old Charlie, the owner, analyzed the items. He said the batteries were good, but the glue wasn't so good, so he would only pay half the value. In total, Chu Guang received only 3 chips. Inside the precarious establishment, the negotiation continued. With an air of knowing everything, Charlie offered some new items that had arrived from Boulder City, the largest survivor settlement in the region. Charlie then warned him to stock up on food and fuel as prices would rise with the arrival of winter, and from the looks of it, the cold would arrive earlier that year. Charlie pondered for a moment. Apparently, the warning about winter wasn't just a sales tactic. The arrival of the cold really seemed to worry him, and with good reason. With the approach of winter, the devastated lands became even more dangerous. The mutant creatures became more active, hunting to prepare for the icy months. Traveling in these conditions was practically suicide. A single mistake, a moment of carelessness, and the result would be fatal. Therefore, most scavengers simply made one last trip to stock up on supplies. Then, it was locking themselves at home and waiting for spring to arrive. But Charlie explained that there was another option: face the dangers and travel the 10 kilometers to Boulder City. The markets there remained open even at the height of winter. As he listened, Chu Guang remembered the old man's story. Charlie hadn't always belonged there. He was a survivor from another shelter that was destroyed. After his home fell, he was captured and treated like a slave, sold to the highest bidder. In the end, it was the mayor of Bet Street who bought him and assigned him to the position of registrar, dealing with the scavengers who came and went. Chu Guang thought that if the world hadn't ended, a man like Charlie could have been a great engineer or doctor, and not just a junkyard clerk. Thanking him for the information, the young man said goodbye. Charlie told him to be careful and come back if he found anything of value. As he walked through the ruined streets, Chu Guang concluded that Charlie's kindness probably came from seeing him as an equal. Another survivor of a fallen shelter. He finally arrived home. The 3 chips he got were barely worth anything, but he needed to see how much he had saved. He picked up his small safe. Adding the 3 new coins to what he already had, the total came to exactly 50 chips. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. His family's entire fortune kept in a single box. It had to be enough. He started planning what he would do. First, he would buy tools to repair the shelter, and then he would put the players to collect the necessary materials. Chu Guang's plan wasn't about hunting monsters to level up. The priority now was different. He needed tools for the shelter and, mainly, rations for his future workers. After all, the players were, in reality, clones, living bodies that needed real sustenance. If hunger struck, he could easily lose control over them, and the whole plan would fall apart. To emphasize the point, the system assistant manifested dramatically, clinging to him and complaining that she was starving. A very clear manipulation tactic to get him to arrange food for the clones. The calculation was simple and disheartening. To feed 5 people for a week, even with the cheapest food, he would need 70 chips. The problem is that he only had 50. But then, an idea came up. He remembered the true purpose of those players. They weren't guests, they were resources. There was no reason to feed them well. After all, what creature in the world was easier to exploit than a player? With the solution in mind, Chu Guang decided to go to the recycling center first to get what he needed. But as he left home, he was surprised by someone who bumped right into him. It was a girl. She quickly apologized, explaining that it hadn't been on purpose. Chu Guang was surprised by her sudden appearance. He recognized her. It was Yu Xiaoyu, the youngest daughter of the Yu family. She explained that she heard noises and, worried, came to check if his house wasn't being robbed. Her concern was genuine, but the situation left her completely embarrassed. A little awkward with the situation, Chu Guang just thanked her for her concern. Her response came quickly and animatedly. She said it was no problem and that she could even watch his house when he left since she didn't have much to do. He then warned her to be careful and not approach strangers like that. After all, it would be the end of her if she met a bad person. But Xiao Yu disagreed right away. She said she wasn't a child anymore and, more importantly, that he wasn't a bad person. He had given her soup once when she was hungry. That's when Chu Guang understood everything, so that was why. Since the day he helped her, the girl had always been around his house watching from afar. Realizing that she was a little upset, he tried to calm her down. He then offered her something to eat, but with one condition, that she didn't tell anyone about it. Chu Guang remembered the reason for all of this. Her kindness, offering a bowl of soup when he needed it, was what led him to want to return the gesture. So he offered the candy. Xiao Yu could hardly believe it, asking, surprised, if it was really for her. The girl tasted the lollipop for the first time. Seeing the scene, Chu Guang couldn't help but smile. He thought about how a child like her, in his old world, should be in school, not struggling to survive. He had taken the candy out of a cloth with care, as if it were a small treasure. The little girl's eyes sparkled with admiration. She had never seen anything like it. The taste was completely new, an explosion of sweetness that she never imagined existed. That small gesture had completely changed her day. She savored every second, not wanting the candy to end. The happiness on Xiao Yu's face was genuine and contagious. He felt happy too. The girl even commented, surprised, that he also knew how to smile. In that devastated world, such a simple moment of joy seemed rare and precious. After enjoying it for a bit, she looked at the candy and had an idea. With a smile, Xiao Yu offered the lollipop to Chu Guang, insisting that he try it too. That simple gesture of sharing created a moment of silence between them, a contrast between her innocence and the harsh reality he represented. Xiao Yu insisted he try it, saying she wasn't kidding and really wanted to share it with him. Chu Guang, caught off guard, didn't know how to react to such pure kindness. Awkwardly, he just adjusted the girl's hat and prepared to leave, leaving the candy for her. It was a gift, and he wanted her to have it. Xiao Yu then turned and started walking back to her house, but not before saying goodbye, waving and shouting a farewell to Chu Guang as he walked away. Meanwhile, at Shelter 404, Chu Guang watched the time pass beside his little robot. 3 days had passed since he sent out the invitations. He thought to himself that it was about time. The players should start arriving any minute now. Far away, in the real world, a young man put on a full immersion helmet, preparing to enter the game. In moments, he lost consciousness, and then an intense light marked their arrival. The souls of the new players were transported to that new world. The first to materialize was a young blonde man who emerged from inside a hibernation pod filled with a strange liquid. He woke up suddenly, completely disoriented and not understanding where he was or what had happened. The pod opened and the liquid drained out, allowing him to finally get out. The young man took his first steps in that place, still soaked and confused. That's when he realized he wasn't alone. Other players were also getting out of their pods, all with the same shocked expression on their faces. One of them, a white-haired man known as White Horse, seemed furious, questioning if this was really just a game. The sensation was too real. He remembered creating his character. It was supposed to be a game, a simple choice of skills and appearance, but the reality he found was much more brutal and terrifying than any customization screen. Another player, and level 8 specialist, was trying to compose himself. The transition from the virtual world to that cold, damp reality was affecting everyone, no matter how experienced they were. Suddenly, A noise caught everyone's attention. The blonde player turned around, completely caught off guard. A sealed door ahead began to glow, indicating that someone was arriving. One of the players wondered aloud if it was the brother light they were expecting. The door opened, revealing the silhouette of a man accompanied by a small creature. The light was so strong that it was impossible to see their faces. When the light dimmed, a man of imposing presence revealed himself. He explained that he needed their help to reconquer his homeland. He introduced himself as the administrator of that place, codenamed Dawn. His expression left no doubt about the seriousness of the situation. Beside him was his assistant, a small robot named Little Seven. Dawn informed them that any questions they had should be directed to the robot. The players were speechless, trying to process the information. They couldn't believe that the administrator was an NPC, as he seemed like a real person. The line between game and reality was becoming increasingly blurred. While everyone was shocked, Chu Guang watched with a confident smile. He realized that, with the arrival of the administrator, the initiative was now in his hands. The initial confusion quickly turned into a barrage of questions. They wanted to know about their missions, how to get out of the game, and above all, where was this brother light? Dawn cut off the conversation. He ordered everyone to be silent and memorize the rules of the shelter resident manual. Their mission, for now, was just to obey. The group then followed the administrator and his assistant along a path in the forest, leaving the facility behind and heading towards the unknown. Reading the manual, they discovered the frightening truth. The administrator's orders were absolute, and he had the power to ban players, which was the same as being kicked out of the game. He wasn't just an NPC, he was the master of the game. Chu Guang stopped the group on the outskirts of Gingquan City. He explained that they were safe from radiation there and that their first mission was about to begin. The task was simple, but vital. Collect firewood for the approaching winter and repair an old asylum to transform it into an outpost in that desolate territory. The mission was clear. To survive, they would need to work. The group understood the message, ready to start the task with the axes that were provided. But before they started, Chu Guang gave one last warning. He instructed them not to stray too far from the designated area, as safety was the priority. With high morale, the group responded in unison. They shouted that they would reclaim the devastated lands and rebuild their home. The excitement was contagious. He also made it clear that if they encountered any mutants, the order was not to fight. Just retreat silently and safely. The danger out there was real. As the group left, Little Seven expressed his concern, asking if they would be okay on their own. Chu Guang then gave the little robot a mission: watch them from the third floor of the asylum and warn him of any danger. And so, the players spread out into the forest, each grabbing an axe to begin the hard work of collecting wood. The sound of axes echoed through the woods as the trees began to fall. Their strength seemed superhuman, felling huge logs with impressive ease. However, the task proved more difficult for some. The young blonde complained of fatigue, questioning why the white-haired man seemed so strong and trained, while he could barely hold the axe. He lamented that having a strong body in the game was useless without girls to admire him. In his imagination, he already saw himself as a muscular hero surrounded by fans. Meanwhile, another player, more analytical, began to theorize about their nature. He raised two possibilities. Either they were ancient humans awakened from cryogenic sleep, or they were artificial beings created by technology. He leaned towards the second hypothesis, as it would realistically explain how they could be revived in the game, using their DNA to create a new clone with each death. The idea excited him about the possibilities of the game, imagining complex DNA and class systems, but his companions were already used to his nerdy ways, simply ignoring the speech. The blonde player continued his excitement, pointing to the forest. He was already immersed in the game world, imagining finding elves in a post-apocalyptic setting, while his companions just watched, already used to his ramblings. In his mind, the fantasy was already a reality. He imagined himself being the hero of the story, receiving the attention of two beautiful elves. It was the perfect scenario he so desired. But the reality was quite different. One of his companions scolded him, reminding him of the administrator's orders not to stray from the shelter. He warned that, with only one axe, encountering a mutant would mean the end for them all. The scolding was so serious that the other players even grabbed their axes to emphasize it. Pressured, the young blonde agreed not to do anything stupid, but grumbled privately, annoyed at having to obey a simple NPC. But the rules of that place were absolute. The administrator's orders were law, and all shelter residents had to obey unconditionally. With no choice, the blonde player started working, taking out his frustration on the task. He focused entirely on the task. The axe hit the target hard, but suddenly, a strange sensation took over him. A danger alert popped up out of nowhere, indicating that something was very wrong. Before he could react, an invisible force hit him head-on, throwing him back violently. He fell to the ground, stunned and not understanding what had just happened. The young man realized that he was almost knocked out with a single blow. Looking up, he saw only a crow flying away, leaving a trail of black feathers. But the danger had not passed. What appeared to be a simple crow turned out to be a giant, menacing creature. It was a mutant, and he panicked. The creature wasted no time and dived straight towards him, ready for the final attack. Meanwhile, back at the shelter, an alert sounded. The system registered that the players had logged into the game and completed the main task. Little 7, the assistant robot, received the notification. A new reward was released, an active matter extractor, a crucial item for the next phase of the plan. The system confirmed that the main task was completed. As a reward, Chu Guang finally obtained the active matter extractor, an item that came with its own instruction manual. The manual was very straightforward. Active matter was the main ingredient for creating clones, and the best source for extracting it was from carcasses, especially mammals. Chu Guang processed the information. The tool he so desperately needed to move forward had a very peculiar method of operation. He looked at the imposing machine in front of him, confirming that it was the extractor. The missing piece for his plan was finally there. According to the manual, even mutants could be used as raw material. This opened up a range of possibilities he hadn't even considered. A smile appeared on his face. Finally, he had a method to obtain the necessary materials and start synthesizing his clones. The plan was back on track, but the celebration was interrupted. Out of nowhere, Little 7 appeared in a panic, running towards him. The little robot gave the desperate alert. There was a huge problem. A huge bird was attacking the players north of the asylum. The news caught Chu Guang by surprise. His players, his sources of material, were in mortal danger, and the bird was a nightmare. A giant mutant creature with red eyes of pure fury. In the forest north of the asylum, chaos was already installed. The players ran for their lives, fleeing from the shadow that covered the sky. The dread was visible on everyone's face. They had never faced something of that size and power. They were completely unprepared for the threat descending from the skies. Amid the panic, one of the more analytical players tried to identify the creature. He accessed the mutant gallery, confirming that it was a mutant hawk. The situation was desperate. Fallen on the ground, they realized they urgently needed a plan, but fear paralyzed any attempt to counterattack. Amid the chaos, one of the players noticed something strange. He wondered who had thrown a rock, suspecting they weren't alone there, but there was no time to think. The mutant hawk dived in a brutal attack, throwing one of the players away with the impact. Meanwhile, the player with glasses refused to give in to fear. Paralysis gave way to fury, and he prepared to fight back with his bare hands. In a quick movement, he threw himself in front of the danger, ready to intercept the creature's next attack. While the others hid in the bushes, terrified, he faced the threat head-on without taking a single step back. The creature was a flying nightmare, a relentless predator that wouldn't give them a chance to escape. Its gaze was pure malice. The monster focused on the target that dared to defy it. Just then, a new presence suddenly entered the scene. A precise blow struck the hawk in mid-flight, catching the creature completely by surprise. The weapon was improvised, but the strength behind it was undeniable. It was Chu Guang. With a confident smile, he finally arrived to turn the tables. The help the players needed so much. The mutant hawk saw the reflection of its new opponent, and for the first time, the prey felt that it could become the hunter. Chu Guang stared at the creature, provoking it. He made it clear that size was no match for human intelligence, and without wasting time, the protagonist advanced, ready to show the monster who was really in charge of that forest. Hidden in the bushes, the players watched everything, completely shocked by what they had just witnessed. An instant later, a rain of black feathers confirmed the result of the battle. The terrifying creature had finally been defeated. Soon after, a smoke signal rose through the trees. Chu Guang already had other plans for the fallen monster. And what plans? The mutant hawk, which minutes before was a deadly threat, was now dinner for the night. The group approached, still in disbelief. They questioned whether it was even safe to eat, but Chu Guang reassured them, saying that it just needed to be cooked well. Curiosity took over, and one of them asked if the mutation was due to radiation. Chu Guang explained that the problem was much more complex, involving viruses and biological weapons. While turning the improvised skewer, the protagonist only lamented one thing: the lack of salt to season the meat. For someone used to fighting for their life, even the smallest luxuries made a huge difference. Survival was like that. Seeing the size of the bird, the players commented that it would be impossible to eat it all at once. But Chu Guang already had the perfect solution. He said that they just had to store what was left in the fridge. A simple idea, which sounded absurd to them. One of the players explained that only mayors in their castles had access to something like that. The mention of these words left the group in shock. The simple idea of a better life made the blonde player's imagination fly away, dreaming of a life of luxury, with the right to bathe, eat, and rest. His dream, of course, also included a little more company, a man of culture, apparently. A colleague brought him back to reality, telling him to stop daydreaming. But the seed had already been planted. The young man now declared that he wanted to become a mayor. Chu Guang watched the scene in silence. He understood that to keep that group motivated, he would need to offer more than just survival. He would need to give them a goal. To motivate the group, Chu Guang first needed to get them to work, but the team didn't seem at all excited about the idea, complaining about hunger and fatigue. Then, the protagonist presented the reward system. He explained that all their effort would be converted into points, which could be exchanged for valuable items. The simple mention of real food was enough to change everyone's mood. Hunger, suddenly, spoke louder than fatigue. The prospect of a real reward aroused the interest even of the most skeptical. The motivation that was missing had just appeared. Out of nowhere, one of the players shouted that he felt a wave of energy take over his body. Chu Guang's plan had worked perfectly, and with that, the group threw themselves into work with a determination that didn't exist a minute ago, rushing to accumulate as many points as possible. The result was impressive. After hard work, everyone was completely exhausted on the floor, but the task had been completed successfully. Chu Guang then announced the result of the collective effort. In total, they had accumulated more than 2,000 contribution points. The strongest player, who owned a brick factory in real life, bragged that it was easy for him as he took his reward. The others also celebrated the success, happy to finally have something concrete and delicious in exchange for all the effort they made. Even the knowledge-type player, who wasn't focused on strength, got his 300 points, showing that everyone contributed in some way. Seeing that Chu Guang hadn't taken anything for himself, the group approached. They consoled him, saying it was just a game, and offered him a piece of their food. Chu Guang was shocked, remembering what could have happened if he hadn't given them a fair reward. Perhaps the next thing they would try to cut would be himself. He then checked his own contribution points, and the difference was absurd, more than 9,000. He realized he needed to manage expectations carefully so as not to create a riot. Meanwhile, the group, now in a good mood, was already thinking about the future. One of them asked Chu Guang about the lack of electricity and suggested getting a generator for the outpost. Back at the outpost, Chu Guang reflected on the peculiarities of that world. Even the language was different, with very few similarities to Earth's original language, reinforcing how far from home he was. One of the players, not understanding the complexity of the situation, suggested a simple solution to the lack of power. Just run an extension cord from the main shelter. But another player, more sensible, quickly shot down the idea. He explained that they didn't have cables that long, and more importantly, the shelter's power was limited and not a long-term solution. With the generator issue on hold, they decided to head back. It was already getting dark in the game, which meant it would soon be daytime in the real world, since the two places had a 12-hour time difference. As they walked, the group commented on how time flew by there. The game was so realistic that some even admitted they didn't feel the slightest desire to go back to the life they had before. Back at the shelter, Little Seven led Chu Guang to a chamber full of capsules. Inside each one, a cloned body floated in a greenish liquid. The little robot then asked Chu Guang if he would like to take a look at the current state of the player's clones. Little Seven began to explain the process. Every time a player logged out, the chamber scanned the clone, extracted stem cells, and recorded the genetic sequences to create a backup. This data allowed them not only to restore the players, but also to check the progress of their genetic development with each game session. The robot continued, explaining that the clones were synthesized from different DNA sequences. This gave each player distinct innate talents, such as more strength or more intelligence. The genetic development progress showed how close the clone was to its maximum potential. If it reached 100%, the body would reach a perfect state, although this was considered almost impossible. And the current player's results were proof of that. Everyone's genetic progress barely exceeded 0.1%. They were still very, very far from their true potential. However, Little Seven revealed that it was possible to increase this value. By constantly stimulating their survival instincts and exercising their bodies, players could evolve. Chu Guang understood immediately, so even the scallions he was cultivating could level up. A wicked idea began to form in his mind. He concluded that, in the future, he would need to give them much more focused training, a training that would force them to overcome their limits and evolve, whether they wanted to or not. Meanwhile, back in the real world, the story takes us to the teachers' dormitories at Jinling University. There was Professor Yan Feng, also known in the game as 8th Level Gale. The immersion helmet in his hands confirmed that he was one of the players. After tidying up, he left with one goal in mind. He needed to consult a colleague about a question that had been bothering him since his last game session. It was noon, and the university cafeteria was packed. It was there that he found the person he was looking for, amidst the movement of the other students. It was Professor Wang, the campus darling. His popularity with the female students was undeniable, and they didn't make the slightest effort to hide how much they admired him. Wang saw him and called him over to sit down, advising him to have a proper lunch as skipping meals wasn't good for the body. Around them, the sighs continued. For the female students, Professor Wang was not only handsome, but also extremely caring. But Yan Feng wasn't there to socialize. He was completely focused on an electrical engineering book, seeking answers to the generator problem. Suddenly, he slammed the book shut. The question was more important than the reading. He stared at his colleague, ready to finally ask the question that had brought him there. Professor Wang noticed the change in attitude and was curious to know what was going on in the physicist's head. So Yan Feng explained that, inspired by a novel, he wanted to know how survivors of an apocalypse could generate electricity. Wang found the question a bit bizarre and smiled, saying that one shouldn't take the content of a fiction book so seriously. Only suddenly, he completely changed his tone. He approached Yan Feng, staring at him closely and leaving the physicist totally speechless. With an enigmatic smile, Wang said that this concern would only make sense if Yan Feng could actually travel to a post-apocalyptic world. Little did he know how close to the truth he was. Despite Wang's bizarre question, Yan Feng kept his composure, adjusting his glasses as if nothing had happened. He just wanted an academic consultation, but the conversation took an unexpected turn. On the outside, he was the calm and controlled professor, but on the inside, the player was panicking. Wang's intuition hit him hard, almost exposing the truth about his double life. Noticing his colleague's reaction, Wang changed his tone again, now with a friendly smile. He asked Yan Feng to tell him more about the plot of the novel he was reading. A little embarrassed, Yan Feng began to describe the game's setting, disguising it as the story of a book. He explained that the world was set 200 years after a nuclear war. The mention of the apocalypse made Wang stop laughing. He began to take the conversation seriously, pondering the implications of a world destroyed in that way. Now in his element, Yan Feng detailed the problems. 200 years after the disaster, most electronic equipment would be rendered useless by the electromagnetic pulses from the explosions. He continued, explaining that the more sophisticated the device, the less likely it was to have survived. The idea of finding working generators in restaurants or homes seemed almost impossible, and even if the parts hadn't rusted over time, there would still be the problem of fuel. Gasoline wouldn't last 200 years. The situation seemed hopeless. But then, Professor Wang had an idea. He pointed out that there was a source of energy that everyone forgot, something common and that could be reused. The revelation thrilled Yan Feng. He immediately grabbed his notebook, ready to write down every word of that unexpected lesson on survival at the end of the world. Wang explained that every car has a generator. With a small repair, it could generate a stable 12-volt current, enough for basic tasks like lighting. And with an inverter, that energy could be converted to power televisions, fans, and even refrigerators. The solution was there all along, hidden in the wreckage of civilization. Wang ended his explanation, saying he had a class to teach. He offered to help Yan Feng with more questions in the future, should he need it. He barely finished speaking when he was completely surrounded by a group of female students, all begging for his attention. The professor's popularity was a minor obstacle. As he was dragged away by them, he suggested they seek out Yan Feng. Little did he know that the physicist now had valuable information to apply to a completely different world. With the solution in hand, Yan Feng wrote down every detail the professor passed on. He felt like he had just found the key to one of the biggest problems in that world. That's when his cell phone started vibrating in his pocket. It was a message from a player known as There Is Ample Time. The text was a giant summary of the game's story and mechanics, which made Yan Feng's excitement disappear instantly. Meanwhile, in a room full of trophies, There Is Ample Time himself was in his natural habitat. He was a famous streamer, and at that moment, he was live, talking about the new game he had the chance to test. With his usual charisma, he described the experience to his followers, who listened attentively to every word about the game. He praised the game excessively, saying it was incredible, but made it clear that he would only truly believe it if they made him an official alpha test player. After the joke, he got a little more serious, preparing to answer the questions that were starting to pop up in the chat. His fans were curious about everything: what happened when you died in the game, how many times he had already died, and most importantly, when he would do a full live stream. The questions panicked the streamer. These were things he probably couldn't or didn't know how to answer, and the public pressure was immediate. On the other side of the screen, someone was watching. The streamer ended the live stream, begging a person named Brother Light to grant one last request. The streamer's strategy, however, worked. The number of players who pre-ordered the game increased considerably after his broadcast. This Brother Light, who seemed to be one of the developers, watched the results with a satisfied smile. The streamer's popularity was a powerful tool. He saw that the player had made him an administrator of the group, recognizing his importance. The streamer's influence was simply undeniable. But about his last request, the game had a very clear rule. Players were not allowed to change genders, a detail that Brother Light didn't seem willing to negotiate. In the world he created, interaction with the characters was fundamental. The favorability system defined everything. With a low level, the NPCs were hostile and sent the player away without a second thought. But with a high level, the story was different. The same NPC became the friendliest person in the world, offering items, secret missions, and even new classes. It was a complex system designed to reward the player's effort. And the first reactions of the players when connecting with their clones in the game were exactly as expected. The immersion was so intense that it caught everyone by surprise. On the other side, the creator of all this, Chu Guang, watched the results. He was the Brother Light that the streamer talked so much about, the administrator behind the game. He leaned back in his chair, satisfied. The testing phase was going well, and the marketing strategy had been a success. The game's system was clear. To connect to a clone, players needed an official helmet. It was a basic rule for everyone. That's when his robotic assistant, Little Seven, appeared. Seeing the robot, Chu Guang had an idea and asked if he, as an administrator, could also connect his consciousness to a clone. After all, he had arrived at that place without needing any equipment. Little Seven promptly offered to investigate the possibility for his master. But there was a problem. Chu Guang's genetic sequence was not in the database, so he asked the robot to calculate his attributes based on his physical exam. The result appeared on the screen, confirming his status, administrator. Next, he analyzed the data of the 4 alpha test players. Comparing their stats with his, he began to ponder the differences. His own attributes were far superior to those of the clones. He found it interesting that his genetics were not registered, meaning that his destiny had not been predetermined by anyone. At that moment, a notification popped up. He unlocked the Novice Guide achievement for keeping a player online for more than 8 hours on the first day, earning his first reward points. Little Seven got excited and said that the points were enough to open a mid-level blind box. Intrigued, Chu Guang decided to try his luck. He activated the reward system, hoping for anything that wasn't useless. The machine processed the request and, with a cloud of smoke, released the prize. The item was a genetic enhancement fluid. Little Seven was impressed, congratulating the administrator for getting something so good right off the bat. The screen detailed the item, a cell-strengthening injection. It permanently increased strength, but the effect diminished with each use in a 24-hour interval. Chu Guang looked at the object suspiciously. It had been stored for 200 years, and he wondered if it was still safe to use something so old. It seemed too dangerous, but Little Seven assured him that everything there was of the highest quality, trying to reassure the administrator. Faced with the robot's insistence, Chu Guang decided to take a chance. He just hoped it wouldn't cause any serious problems. Without hesitating, he applied the injection to his arm. However, nothing happened. Chu Guang checked his body, but he didn't feel any different. He thought that maybe the medicine had lost its effect over time. He even punched his own arm to test it, but the strength felt the same as before. Disappointed, he figured that at least having no effect was better than having a negative side effect. But then, out of nowhere, a strange sensation took over his body. A numbness spread completely, followed by a wave of heat rising towards his heart. He didn't know if this would strengthen him or destroy him for good.